want to thank you all again for coming, making the trip from near and far for this event. It is our 10th anniversary, and we're really proud to be here. And as I said earlier, really just full of gratitude for being able to do this work in collaboration with the Bloomberg School of Public Health, School of Medicine, and some of the other schools over the years. So esteemed guests and colleagues, really heartfelt appreciation of that and being able to move into this next decade. Without our supporters and underwriters and sponsors, we wouldn't be able to be here. And so I want to deeply acknowledge the sponsors that have generously contributed to bringing, enabling us to really do this and put this event on in the way we would really like to. And you recognize, I think, all of the names up here. And we're fortunate enough to have all of these incredible organizations here and with us over the next couple of days to share with us insights, their view of what's not only happening today, but what the future is, what the possibilities are. And probably in a more succinct fashion last year, our title was From the State of the Art to the Art of the Possible. We couldn't surpass that one, get it any shorter, so we went for the longer title there, a little more academic perhaps. But I think it's the art of the possible, which we keep coming back to, and I think that's what attracts many of you to this meeting and to this organization and the work we're doing is what is possible. And I, again, want to deeply thank our sponsors who have generously contributed. And as I said, we'll be contributing to the dialogue as we go forward here. So one of the things I want to do is recognize the very quickly the 10th anniversary and give you a quick retrospective of kind of where we've come from. And take a look at this, and we'll come back and talk in a second. I'm Stein, and I want to welcome to the first Stewards of Change conference. How do we think about the massive kind of changes that we're talking about, and is there a theory of change?
I think what you will find in here over the next 2.5 days will enlighten you, inform you, and challenge you.
The impetus of these conferences has really been a concerted effort to break out of our silos and to take the best ideas from different fields and use those ideas to improve the lives of children and families.
The Camellia Project in Alabama just finished its first official year this month, and I wanted to sort of give you an overview of how far we've come this year.
Information, I don't need to tell you. President Obama basically has hit this one. We've got to have medical technology information. We've got to share this information. We've got to connect.
When I was looking at the map there, another one you're constructing here, and what I like so much is that you're not just trying to find the answers, but you're trying to identify what are the right questions.
We cannot do what we have done before and think that we are going to accomplish that huge delta of change that we just described by 2014.
The conditions are uniquely right at this point in time for the federal government to partner with state and local government to storm the barricades of old thinking and to really achieve a new way of doing business.
And what we really need, what we expect, and what we must demand of one another is bold thinking. We must be creative and forward-looking with a focus on outcomes for public benefit.
Systems engineering really allows you not only to consider the things, but really get at the meat of the options to come up with, hopefully, what the optimal solution is.
We are at a remarkable inflection point right now in terms of public health, healthcare, and the delivery of human services. And it's, I assumed it would be fascinating when I got involved in it. It's proven to be more than fascinating. It's kind of all-consuming, right?
The art of the possible is the art of the potential. Interoperability looks like something to users. It really does. It really has a look. But I wanted to talk about that from a user's perspective to us at Google.
This has been a wonderful event. What I really like too is that it ties to what you all did last year. There's a persistence to this. Building these communities, it takes time, it takes energy to build that critical mass, to get that spark.
So 10 years and 3 minutes and 1 second. I have to hand it to Chris Iska, our video editor and expert on putting stuff together over the years he's been with us. So hope that gave you a little feeling for kind of where we're at on this. Just want to give a little more description of kind of where we are, where we're going, and what we kind of hope to accomplish over these next couple of days, just to set the stage for us, because we're on a journey, and the agenda has been designed to really take us on this journey for the next couple of days to arrive at a place where we have some really, hopefully, new, interesting breakthrough ideas and some actions to move forward. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I want to encourage you to think about this as a retreat, or some people call it an advance, whereby you set your day-to-day tasks aside for a little bit and let yourself think strategically. I know almost all of you here, probably all of you, are in some leadership role in your organizations, and you are also probably inundated with lots of minutia every day. And the role of strategic thinking, while it's important and critical, may get short-shrifted occasionally. So I want to encourage you to sit back, think, really spend some time with the people in this room. We've been very thoughtful about inviting people to this event who are like-minded in many ways, and thinking about these challenges of connecting systems from a whole variety of different perspectives. So in the room, we have about 125 people who have signed up, and they'll be coming in, and some people are here for the whole 3 days, and some people are here for a couple of days. But in general, about 36% are government, either federal, state, local government, about 23% are industry, about 9% academic, and the remaining 30-odd% are from associations or nonprofits or institutes or consultants thinking about this. So we kind of have a very nice mix of perspectives coming to the table, which should ideally really help and energize some of the conversations we're having. You'll find a lot of diversity of opinion. We also have about 65% of the people here are new. So look to your left, look to your right, and then look one more time, and 2/3 of those people will not have been here before, whatever the math is. If you can help me out on that one. So there are a lot of new people here, which is great. And people are very interested in this conversation, and as you'll see, we have a lot of time for conversation. So what I'd like to do is actually transition it to Vernon Brown, my partner in this work. I was going to say crime, but I don't think that's appropriate, but sometimes it feels that way. And a co-founder of Stewards of Change and the chairman of our board. I met Vernon in 1998. I had just left Kraft Foods on the other side of the obesity equation. Figured I'd do penance and try to do something good afterwards. There's formidable forces, though, at play against us, I should say, having been part of that team for a bit. And was doing some work. An old friend of mine was working at his organization at the time, and we got to know each other. And they were looking at trying to reform a large organization at that time and kind of move it forward into this interoperability world before that world and that word was known. Got to know Vernon, and what I found, which was amazing, was a receptivity to ideas and concepts and tools and models that are part of the business world, things that businesses use every day to advance their business. And Vernon had the foresight to think about how you could apply that in the nonprofit world in the state of California, and embraced things like supply chain management and strategic communication and a whole variety of things. And we had a playground for a number of years where we experimented and worked on things and saw what worked. And to our delight, many of the practices were actually applicable in an organization, which was delightful. And it was very exciting. And it got me and I think our team actually launched in this direction over the last 10 years, actually longer than that, but over the last 10 years in particular with Stewards of Change, we've really taken that idea and those ideas and that insightful perspective towards the future and have been able to work with many of you and many other people across the country to try to figure out how to apply that work in the social and health and public health sectors. And so with that, I'd like Vernon to come and say a few words about the organization and how he got to this work.
Thank you, Daniel. It's great to see everyone. It's great to see those 33 presenters out there that I know and seen over the last 10 years. And it's a great honor and pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Board of Directors for Stewards of Change Institute. And in the room are Catherine Crabtree, if you would stand, and Sid Gardner is back there, and Paul Wormley. All these folks are active, engaged members of our board, and it's a great honor and pleasure to interact with them. Charlie Maudlin is not here today; he's back in New York City. But I think what Daniel asked me to do was to kind of make the connection to the founding and purpose of Stewards of Change. And bring us to the present and connect us to the past. And I'm going to spend a little bit more than 3 minutes I wish I had a better editor, right? But at the same time, it's been my distinct privilege to focus on the vision that we have within Stewards of Change for the last 10 years. But more importantly, too, it's been an honor and privilege to hang out with this gentleman for over 15 years. And so I'll kind of context it within the way in which I do my work today. Stewards of Change is not my full-time job. My full-time job is the CEO of Aspirinet, which is a nonprofit agency in California. And this is my 40th year. And you're looking at the original Aspirinet social worker. And as a result of the opportunities that I've had to interact with folks across the spectrum of health and human services, it's always been my goal to connect the dots, to look at ways in which children fundamentally will have the opportunity to be given the chance to be loved and cared for. Like we all want to love and care for our own children, right? It's meaningful. And I can't think of anything more meaningful than to ask us in our leadership roles on a day-to-day basis to make that happen. And interoperability is a tool for doing that. And interoptimability and Human Services 2.0, which we were bold enough to put forward in 2007, is a methodology and a way in which we want to think that we can accomplish that. And we hope that you will all join us as stewards of change. And I want to make sure that as we go forward over the next 3 days, that we reflect on why we're doing the work. And Human Services 2.0 is focused on the consumer, the client, the child, the family. And I've spent my entire career working with children and families. And so, like most of us who are dads and who were traveling yesterday, we got calls from our children, or you were able to have your children, give you a call. Well, I got a call at 11 o'clock yesterday morning after having taken the red eye from LA to get here. I was a little bit tired. And it was Danny, right? And Danny says, "Hey, Pops," "Hey, Pops, Happy Father's Day." How you doing? How you doing? And he's very quick. And he says, Here, I want you to talk to Johnny, your grandson. Right? Well, Danny's last name is Danny Huyn. I've had the honor and the privilege of being with him for over 30 years. In 1985, I placed Danny in a Vietnam vet's home as a foster parent. And over the last 30 years, I've had that interaction like most parents would. But the point is that Danny has all of those complexes that we all have had. He walked across the killing fields of Cambodia to Thailand, to the refugee camps in Thailand at the fall of Saigon. And he taught me trauma and what trauma is all about in a way that I never understood. Because he came to us in 1985, or he was referred in 1984, because he had failed 17 foster homes, 6 group homes. And they were calling us and saying, hey, you know, and at that time, I was supervising 10 group homes in the Bay Area, and they were all dedicated to adjudicated delinquent youth. And they had run out of places where he could go. And so I said, okay, we'll try. And what you need to understand is that, you know, a group home is all about, okay, we get up at 8 o'clock. We eat at 8:30. We all go to school at 9 o'clock. If you've had spent the last 6 years of your life getting to survival, at a survival mode, you know, somebody tell you to get up at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning, that's just not going to happen. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to take care of myself. And so the solution was to find Danny a place where he could be able to do that. And so during those 30 years, I've interacted with on his education. He finished high school in 2 years. One of my proudest moments in my life was he got a standing ovation at his high school diploma. Right? I've been there when he had a tragic car accident, and I had to take him back into my home, you know, for his medical conditions. I also helped him transition into a job. You know, the statute of limitations are over, but those of you that know about 4E monies, Title 4E monies, I hid his money from the government. Because at that time, if you had more than $500 in a bank account, they would take it from you, right? He saved $2,500 in the time that he was with us. And then he went on to say he was going to become a doctor, he was going to become a lawyer. Danny manages a nail shop in Bridgeport, Connecticut now. And he still has a dream for the future, and he still wants to have that happen. And so what I'm trying to say is that I always was looking for what information could I have on Danny. I had no knowledge of, you know something, we don't even know how old he was at that time. You know, he maintains he's 50 now, you know. I'm not sure about that. But the point is that resourcing him, providing him with supports, all of those are hugely important. A week earlier, I placed a girl out of probation in Marin County in a family whose 2 sons had finally gone off to college, and she was an empty nester. I saw her at the local market. I lived in the neighborhood. She says, you know, I always wanted to have a girl. And so the point was then at that time is that I said, well, you know, I have girls, but they're really tough. Those of you that may know, girls in the juvenile justice system get lots and lots of opportunities to not be held accountable for their actions. And so as a result, they are much tougher than some of the boys because no one has ever held them accountable, or at least they don't feel like that is. This young girl had been arrested 6 times for dealing crack cocaine. This is 1985. This was before, you know, the crack epidemic hit. She was selling for her parents. And what we know is that in the child welfare arena, there are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and millions of children that are impacted by drug and alcohol abuse that results in their neglect. 70%, 75% of the children come into care as a result of that. So when Daniel and I met in 1998, Spironet, the agency that I head today, was serving over 1,600 children in foster care at the height of foster care in California, 125,000 children. We were providing 500,000 days of care on an annualized basis. We had scaled in the 90s as a result of the crack epidemic. And I was looking for business class solutions. And Daniel was able to provide that as it related to finding foster parents and recruiting foster parents. And I'll be eternally grateful for the support that he provided and the expertise that was there. And it was always, the question was, why not? Why not? Why can't we do this? And that is the kind of the dogged determination of what Stewards of Change is to this day. And, you know, it was great. You know, we did the classic focus groups, right? We did focus groups in California. We did one in LA. We did one in the Bay Area, excuse me. We did one in Fresno, you know. And I was exposed to being behind the, you know, the mirror windows, you know, and listening to that. The classic comment was one of the foster parents that was there who was telling us, we were hearing the themes. What is it that motivates people? What do they want to be doing this? It was because they wanted to make a difference in one child's life. And that's what this is all about. It's about making a difference for one child, one family, you know, one adult. It is having a consumer-centric vision of what human services should be, inclusive of health, inclusive of well-being. And so during the course, for those of you that are new, please look at the vision map that's over here on the left side of my left and over here on the right side. We were so bold to say, well, you know something? We should have something that provides a methodology for supporting leaders like yourselves in supporting change in large organizations. And so, as a result of that work, Daniel was able to apply it to New York City. It was a really successful campaign. And so we continued to, that was back, what, 2000, right? And in 2002, by 2002, we were asking that question, why can't we have business class expertise in the private nonprofit sector and in the public sector? And Daniel, who is a graduate of Yale, went to Joel Poloni, who's now the dean of Apple University, folks. And then also to Kathleen Feely, and I don't know, I was looking for Kathleen out in the office. She'll be here later, who was then at A&E Casey. And they listened to us being able to bring leaders from across the sectors to come together to speak on that issue. And so now, here we are, you know, 10 years later, and it's just an amazing experience to have had the opportunity to have all of you think and act as stewards of change, right? And in 2002, Daniel and I went to Jacksonville. Remember when they privatized Florida State's, you know, Jeb Bush? Somebody called Jeb Bush governor. He's around, so still, I think, right? He's going to run on that, on his privatization of child welfare, folks. It was very disruptive. We were in Jacksonville, and they were struggling with how are they going to interact with the community? How are they going to keep data together? How are they going to deal with latent racism that was there? How are they going to organize themselves? So we have policy that's set as a result of failure in systems, but we also don't address the structural changes that need to occur as it relates to practice. And we have incremental change that's always kind of occurring, and then we have revolutionary change that happens right at the point in time when we have systems failures, right? And in my world, child welfare, failure is the death of children, right? And, you know, we all see that. And I've experienced that sadness. And I've always wanted to say, how could I have prevented that? How could I have had greater insight into the data sets that were always there? How could I have supported my caseworkers? How could those workers be done? How do we not have another child welfare director fall on their sword, you know, to take care of a systems problem, right? And so at this point in time, what I'm hoping is that when we went to Jacksonville, here's how it happened. We asked them at one point in time, this group of 40 or 50 people very committed to trying to solve their child welfare problems in the Jacksonville area. And we said, if you could see yourselves as stewards of that change, how would you look at this problem differently? Now, they didn't succeed as much as we had hoped for, right, Daniel? But at the same time, the concept of if you could see yourselves as a steward of change, what would you do? And so I'm going to leave you with that for the next 3 days. How could we, as stewards of change, look at health and human services across the entire spectrum of that service array and say, how is interoperability, and then ultimately, how is interoptimability a method for us to achieve what we all want, which is that direct service for that family, that child, that community? How are we going to accomplish that? And so that's the challenge. Thank you.
The roots and the origins are deep. I want to just spend just 2 minutes here on what we're going to be doing with the group over the next couple of days. So, as you know, the title of this is Harnessing the Power of Information Interoperability and the Social Determinants to Advance Health and Wellness Integration. It's a lot of words, but there's a big concept here, and it is how do we think about actualizing the social determinants of health. Is that a term, I just got to ask, is that a term that anybody has not heard? Everybody is familiar with the term social determinants, virtually everybody. So it's pretty intuitive. We know that there's a lot of other things that go into our health and our wellness, and now we've quantified it, and we're going to hear about that shortly in the next panel after this. But our contention is that while that information has been out there for many years, it is now the convergence of our technology, our systems, our knowledge, and our political leadership that allow us to actually implement that. So it's having the technology and the information flows and the data that can help us, enable us to do and to implement social determinants. And that's really the core, and I think that's the change. I think that's the place we're at right now, which is we've got all the tools, we've got the knowledge, we've got the capabilities of making that a reality. And if we can do that, then we can address individual people and children and families in a way that can configure around them the resources that they need at the moment in time. We have the computing power, we have the knowledge power, we have the ability to do that work. And so the job of the next couple of days here is to think together about how to do that.